Yesterday, Bolivia picked centrist Rodrigo Paz to be the president and the newest leader in South America. This is a significant moment, not just because it marks a new direction for the country, but because this is the first time that the Movement to Socialism Party, MAS, has lost the presidential election in 20 years. Let's get into it. After the runoff between two center-right candidates, Bolivians went with an interesting duo. Paz is the son of a former leftist president, and his VP is a cop who was kicked off the force for speaking up against corruption among the ranks. The new government was inaugurated on November 8, with expectations of change and reform over the economic and political institutions of the country. Right now, Bolivia is facing one of the most dramatic economic crises in its history. Shortages of gasoline and diesel make people wait in line for over 12 hours just to fill up the tank. Meanwhile, government spending has lowered the country's foreign currency reserves to practically empty. And the Boliviano has lost over 80% of its value compared to the dollar in just the last 2 years. Additionally, inflation has spiked. Estimates vary from 15.1% according to IMF to 30% according to the World Bank, but either way, inflation has reached its highest since the hyperinflation crisis of the 80s. Bolivians, it seems, were tired of the status quo offered by the MAS party under Evo Morales and his successor, Luis Arce. Arce, who previously served as Evo Morales' Minister of Economics, leaves behind an economic model that depleted the country's natural gas reserves and coincided with a sharp rise in poverty and declining growth. Apparently, the new government is committed to implementing radical measures to save the country from its current inflation and stagnation. Before his inauguration, Rodrigo Paz toured the United States to meet with IMF, the World Bank, and other major financial institutions. His goal was to secure short-term funding to stabilize Bolivia's economy until the planned reforms take effect. This strategy is brand new. Evo and the other recent socialist governments in the region have constantly been against the idea of borrowing money like this. Rodrigo Paz is also likely to have a very different relationship with the United States than his predecessor. Former President Morales kicked the US ambassador and the Drug Enforcement Agency from Bolivia in 2008 after alleged interference in national affairs. Paz, on the other hand, met with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio a little over a week ago. Among the many things discussed, both representatives agreed to a solid partnership and hinted at the possibility of reinstating an American ambassador in Bolivia after more than 15 years. And after Saturday's inauguration, Paz met with Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Thomas Landau and confirmed through a press conference that the US DEA is coming back to Bolivia to fight the spread of coca plantations. Now, even though the country has been suffering from rising violence related to drug trafficking and organized crime, it is worth asking ourselves if America is capable, both economically and technically, of getting involved like this after its failures in other countries. Whether Rodrigo Paz's victory marks a pragmatic reset or continued stagnation will depend on what happens next. In any case, we'll be keeping an eye on Bolivia in the coming months and years to see whether these new reforms can actually make a difference. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that and everything else we cover related to US and geopolitics. And if you want to learn more about the recent Argentina election and why the US made a $40 billion deal with President Javier Milei, you can watch the video on screen. Thanks for watching.